Hi, I'm Griff Wigley, blogging coach here to talk to you a little bit about leadership blogging, which I define as the art of strategic, near real-time storytelling. Let me tell you why. First of all, strategic, number one. Throughout the course of just about any leader's week, there is a never-ending series of interactions that you're having with people in which you're in a position to influence. Most of the time it's face-to-face. It's in your office. It's in the hallway outside your office. It's in a meeting. It's when you're giving a speech. All sorts of interactions throughout your week. It could even be over the phone or even email. But basically in all these instances in which you are in a position to influence somebody else and to some extent them influencing you. These interactions, because you're not the President of the United States and you don't have a biographer following you around, all dissipate when they're over. Sure, they live on a little bit in the hearts and minds of the people who were with you and hopefully you, but for the most part, when it's over, poof, it's gone. So when I say the art of leadership blogging involves strategic, what I'm saying is that you have an opportunity to selectively capture some of those interactions and put them in your blog so that they have a longer shelf life. The idea being that when you have those moments that embody your mission, your values, your goals, your objectives, whatever it is, those are opportune moments to write about, put in your blog so that they have a longer shelf life and that they can reverberate for the people in your circle of influence, your staff, your employees, your members, your customers, your vendors, your constituents, whatever it happens to be. You want to have influence with those people, and by being able to capture selective moments from your week, you can leverage, and that's a term that I use a lot, you can leverage those moments so that they have a much greater ripple effect than ordinarily. Number two in my definition of leadership blogging is near real time. Why? We live in kind of a 24-hour news cycle culture, and the more that people get the feeling that what they're seeing in your blog just happened, and this is when you use words like earlier today, yesterday, on Monday, last Thursday, all of that conveys that they're getting from you a glimpse into your life pretty much as it's happening. Not a complete window, it's a selective window, but it adds to the compelling nature of the blog the more you can keep it relatively near real time. Number three in my definition, short. Short because A, people's attention span is short. B, you don't have a lot of time to produce these things. So, in fact, time, the involvement that it takes to produce a blog on a regular basis is probably the number one complaint I get when executives consider taking this on. How am I going to find time for this? I got emails stacking up, I got voicemail stacking up, now I'm getting text messages, and now you want me to add blogging to the mix? What are you smoking? So the idea is you want to keep it short not only for your audience but for your sake as well. I caution you though that once you start blogging and you get a month or two into it, the fear of time fades as you get feedback that your blog is impacting people, that they're reading it, that they're talking about it. So when you sit down to blog something 2 months down the road after starting, chances are you're not thinking, how am I going to fit this into my day? It becomes email can wait, voicemail can wait, everything's got to wait. I got to put this in my blog. Why? Because you know it's going to travel. You know as soon as you push the publish button, people are going to read it. They're going to pass it on. They're going to email it. Somebody else is going to blog it. Somebody else is going to tweet it. And when you get that feedback, when you're out and about and your employees say, hey, I saw in your blog this morning, or you go out and give a speech and somebody raises their hand and they say, I saw, something you put in your blog yesterday I wanted to ask you about. A reporter calls you up wondering what you meant when you posted that to your blog on Monday. All of that conveys to you that this thing is having impact. You are having influence with it. And so the time involved, the 20 minutes it takes to produce a blog post on any given day, fades in your awareness. How am I going to make time for this? Because you know the ripple effect that it's going to have. And you're all about influence. You're all about having an impact with the people in your circle of influence, your employees, your constituents, your vendors, your customers, whoever it is. That's the audience that you want to have an impact on. And as soon as they start giving you that feedback that they're reading your blog and they're talking about it, the time that it takes you to produce blog posts every week starts to fade in importance because you know of the impact that it's having. Fourth element of leadership blogging, storytelling. If you think about it, short storytelling happens very easily. A lot of leaders say to me, hey, I'm not a storyteller. And I say, well, think back to the last time you were at a party or you were at some kind of a social event and the chit-chat that was going on during that time. Everybody standing around talking is pretty much telling little stories. My kid, let me tell you what happened to my kid last week. I got this call from him at college, and it's built into our day-to-day conversation. So that's the kind of short storytelling I'm talking about. You sit down to compose a blog post and you're thinking, oh man, that just happened. I'm going to tell the story. So you start to compose and you say, I walked out of my office yesterday morning and I ran into Mary Jones, and Mary comes up to me and she says, and that's all of the preface that you need for a little story that is going to embody the point of your blog post, the value that you're talking about, the customer-centric element that represented that exchange that you had with that staff person, whatever it is. The other thing is, think back. We've all pretty much had experiences of falling asleep in church, okay? So what happens, the minister's lecturing, our eyes are getting droopy, and as soon as he or she says, let me tell you what happened last week with my teenager. He comes home, he's like a half hour late, walks in the door, I'm steaming mad. Everybody in the congregation wakes up. Why? Because our brains are triggered by the element of story. And there's actually scientific research out now that shows via MRI what happens with a person's brain when they're engaged with a story. So that's what you want to be doing as much as possible, prefacing, weaving in little stories, near real time, strategic, short, that grab people's attention, even if it's mundane as, I grabbed the Wall Street Journal on the way to work this morning. I'm sitting there on the bus and this article jumps out at me and the headline is, and then you go into why this article is important. But just telling that little bit of story at the beginning matters a big deal, matters a lot to people when they're reading your blog. The last point I want to make, since we're using the term social media, which includes blogs, it also includes tools like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, LinkedIn. But you hear the term social media, you hear the term social networking, and the element that comes through is the social nature of it in terms of interacting with people. In other words, comments on your blog, um, tweeting back and forth with people, responding on Facebook. And most executives hear that and they go, I don't have time for that kind of stuff. I have a circle of people that I'm responsive and responsible responsive to and responsible for. I don't need to increase that. I don't need to be a guru to the world. I just am concerned about my constituents, my customers, my staff, my membership. I don't need to increase that. And so it's a little bit disconcerting when you're hearing this, oh, you got to be on LinkedIn, you got to be on Twitter, you got to be blogging and talking to the world. And most executives go, I don't need that. I don't need that level of social. Um, and my point is, you don't have to. You can use these social media tools for your constituents, your customers, your vendors, your audience that you're most concerned about, and that you don't need to be interactive at all. These can be publishing tools. These can be tools really for you to use as a broadcaster that travel. Your message travels, unlike say just giving a speech to a group of staff people. That speech is captured, you blog about it, you create a YouTube video about it, it can travel around without the conversation attached to it. Now I teach people how to do the interactive part, comments on your blog. It's just not required. I teach people how to use Twitter to interact. It's not required. Um, so the point is, for a busy executive, you don't need to run away from the idea of social media because of these definitions that you see that seem to require interaction with people for which you have little or no time. So keep that in mind when thinking about using social media technologies, not to be more social, but to have more influence. And it's more influence in the sense of the ripple effect of what you do. Your audience has audiences. This is a fact of the social world we live in right now. A higher and increasingly high percentage of the people in your quote-unquote audience are blogging, are tweeting, passing things around via email, posting them on Facebook. So you want to take advantage of that viral effect of these social media technologies so that you can have more influence, you can create more conversations out there that extend the message that you're trying to live day in and day out as a leader of your organization, your community, whatever it happens to be. So it's the viral nature of the world that we live in that gives you an advantage if you're willing to use these tools for the influence that defines you as a leader. So there you have it, the art of leadership blogging, strategic, near real-time short storytelling. I hope it's been helpful, and I hope you consider some of the other things that we're offering: a free white paper, an ebook, webinars, and an intense leadership blogging course. Thanks for watching.